So this time from Marvel Legends Toy Biz Series 8, we're looking at the Iceman figure. You can see the powers and abilities chart and the write-up for Iceman, as well as the other figures in the wave. And I believe this is the last series that came with individualized bases. Some, as you can tell on here, were more intricate than others. One of the most intricate is the Iceman base. Well, let's take a look at the base first, since he's already upon it. It is pretty cool. Okay, you have the base here. You have two pegs here for the Iceman to sit on, and you have a sort of like these cones here that his hands fit into. The base came in 3 pieces. As you can tell, it's the frozen hand of a sentinel. So it's pretty good, but the base doesn't work quite as well as I would have thought it would. I think this needs to be just a little bit taller, and it would have been a really great base. As is, you have to have him really squatting down to get his hands in there. If this had just been a little bit longer, it would have been much better. Iceman here is a pretty unique sculpt, cast from a clear translucent plastic and then painted over. So you can see in some parts of him, you can see through him. It's a nice effect to get across his ice form. Now he's painted a sort of silvery blue and a light blue as well, and really nice paint in the face, and he's got really nice detail in the mouth there. You can see his teeth. From that standpoint, is really great figure. For articulation, this is where the figure gets wonky a little bit. He's got articulation at the neck for left and right, and his head goes up and down, so you can get him looking up pretty well. He's got double extra shoulder joints here. Shoulder joints that help him move forward and back, as well as a joint that allows him to raise his arm. In fact, you can pull the arm all the way out of the socket there. As well as the standard joint that allows the arm to go all the way around and in and out, or out and in. Rotating at the bicep, you got the double joint at the elbow, rotates at the forearm there, bends at the wrist, and all his fingers are on one joint as well. He's got this upper torso articulation that for left and right and slight side to side, not and forward and back there. But he's also got ab articulation as well. So that's pretty odd. And he's got the waist articulation there. His articulation at the hips go forward, back, out, and in. Rotate at the thigh. A double knee joint. Rotate at the shin there. Bend at the ankle. He's got ankle pivot there and a toe joint. So that does it for his articulation. Now, he's always I've always had trouble posing this guy and getting him to stand up. There are very few poses that he's able to stand, simply because he's a little top heavy, I find. I don't know. I think it's just because the waist here is too thin. He's just an odd one to pose. Every once in a while, you get one of those figures that it seems like he shouldn't have trouble standing, but does. Also added to the fact that his ab articulation right there is very loose, so that is also a factor in his balance. Even in just having him stand in a neutral position, well, that's pretty good. So Iceman, or Robert Bobby Louis Drake, first appears in X-Men #1 in 1963. He's born on Long Island. His father is William Drake, and his power first manifests when defending his date from a bully. And he doesn't really hurt the bully, but his ice powers do freak out the townspeople, and the sheriff arrests him for his own protection. That's when Xavier steps in and recruits him to the X-Men, and he smooths things over with the townspeople. He basically makes them forget. And so he becomes the youngest X-Men. He's quite the jokester and prankster of the bunch, sometimes to the annoyance of the other characters. But he really does kind of keep the team sort of, I don't know, upbeat and grounded in some ways with his humor. And he becomes really good friends with the Beast and Angel. When the new X-Men come into the fold, after the incident at Krakoa, he joins he leaves the X-Men to go out on his own. And he joins the short-lived group in Los Angeles called the Champions, alongside Angel. However, when that team kind of falls apart, he goes ahead to pursue an exciting career in the field of accounting. Yes, he's an accountant. And as you would guess, the accounting doesn't really measure up to his life as an X-Men, so he pretty soon joins the Defenders, again with Angel and the Beast this time, and stays with them until that group falls apart. And luckily, when Jean Grey is resurrected, or comes out of her deep sea coma, Warren Worthington reforms the original team of X-Men into X-Factor, and he joins up. A pretty big increase in power when Loki kidnaps him in an attempt to sort of rein in the Frost Giants under his control. And from then on, he has to wear a belt to help him control his powers. Pretty soon he does master it and leaves that belt behind. When X-Factor and the X-Men proper are sort of reunited and folded into one, he becomes a member of the, because there's so many members of the X-Men, he becomes part of the Gold team, and led by Storm, I think. Yeah, I think so. And soon after that, he is possessed by the White Queen, Emma Frost, and notices that when he's possessed, she's able to wield his powers in different ways than he was ever able to. That's a long-running trend with Iceman, is that he's kind of represses his powers because he's afraid of using them, and so he's a lot more powerful than he would allow himself to be. And they returned to that in quite recently after a decimation where there were only 200 mutants left with powers, and for a time he thought that he had lost his powers, but he had really kind of just used this as a mental excuse to block out his powers, and eventually he is able to overcome this mental block, and now he's kind of just hanging out with the rest of the X-Men. And Iceman is someone who's just there. They don't seem to know what to do with him quite, but he's always in the background. Nothing really happens with him for the most part, especially now that he's just a part of the X-Men. They did spend a little bit more time with him when he was part of X Factor in the early 80s or mid 80s. But now he's kind of lost in the shuffle, and it's too bad because he is a pretty cool character, and a lot of the original X-Men have gotten kind of lost over the years. Iceman seems to be constantly left behind. Most people would prefer to do something with Angel or the Beast or Cyclops. So just one of the underappreciated X-Men. That'll be it, and stay tuned for my next review, and until then, see ya.